Hey guys, I'm gonna try to make a quick build guide video about my Disintegrator cast on crit with either bladefall or blade vortex, which is currently level 87, which was very fun to play. However, it can't really do like very endgame content like Elder in higher tier maps or Shaper's Guardians. Even some map bosses are causing some problems for this build. So to start off, let's take a look at Disintegrator staff, which only drops from Uber Elder, but its prices now recently dropped because people started farming it, and well, the league is kind of sort of dead-ish. The staff itself has about 600 DPS, so even using it for melee it's pretty decent, and it has a special siphoning charges and well, mechanics with it. Siphoning charges are like normal charges, they last 10 seconds and you have 25% chance to gain siphoning charge when you use a skill. And I must say, I was a bit disappointed that ramping up the charges is not as easy as I thought, but maintaining them should not be a problem. Now, to increase the maximum amount of siphoning charges, you just equip all kinds of Shaper or Elder items. It doesn't have to be unique. With just the staff itself, you will have 2 charges. And basically with each siphoning charge, you get damage to spells and attacks, some leech, some extra chaos damage, and degen. So because the staff with each siphoning charge gives physical damage to spells and attacks, I thought maybe I should build something like a hybrid attack and spell, but I didn't really want to go with cast on melee kill, because that doesn't work very well against single target. So I went with cast on crit, and for that I went with Trickster, but I think it was a mistake. Initially I had different plan, but as I started leveling my plan changed, and I just adapted and didn't want to re-level, but in the end it still works. It does have its own advantages, but it also does have disadvantages. And I did try a couple different approaches. Now, the main advantages of Trickster for this: Weave the Arcane. Basically your Cyclone costs no mana. Not only that, but using skills have a chance to recover 10% of your maximum mana, and you get increased attack speed when you use a movement skill, which is always. And I took Weave the Arcane first, then I went with Harness the Void for just straight up extra chaos damage, then Swift Killer, and then lastly from Uberlab I took Patient Reaper. What all these do is provide you a very smooth mapping experience. You recover life and mana and ES on kill, you gain power and frenzy charges on kill, and you get extra damage. And you don't need to worry about your mana. Actually, my initial plan was to use as well Mind over Matter, so I would recover life and mana, and I wouldn't even use mana to use the Cyclone. But I just couldn't get all the passive nodes that I wanted, so I just decided to go with just life, which by the way I have 6000 life now. Obviously a strong competitor for this would be a Juggernaut, because it would just be way tankier, you wouldn't need to worry about accuracy, but you would have to sort of build it in a different way. By the way, this build does not have a 6 link. With a 6 link I would do a lot more damage. Now here's the problem. Despite this build having almost 200% increased life from the passive skill tree, it still feels pretty squishy. While mapping you probably won't notice this, because you will be recovering life on kill, but certain map mods like vulnerability and less life recovery rate will definitely make you feel the degen from the staff. This degen from the staff cannot be mitigated with flat armor, which was my mistake, because I thought that I can get armor and mitigate this degen. You can only mitigate with percentage physical damage reduction. Well, and just getting regen. Oh, and also 2 Pantheon powers. Soul of Aracali for 5% reduce damage taken from damage over time, and Soul of Ralakesh for 25% reduce physical damage taken over time while moving. And with Cyclone you're always moving. Also, to get more regen, I am using Abyss Jewels with life regeneration per second while moving, along with flat life and other good stuff. To top that, Patient Reaper also has another good thing. 70% increased life recovery rate if you have killed enemy affected by damage over time. And since you ignite enemies with your crits, you do proc this as well. Also, Soul of Aracali Pantheon Power second upgrade gives you 50% increased life recovery rate if you have stopped taking damage over time recently. And Immortal Call does proc that, because you do stop taking physical damage from the staff. And those basically boost your current life regen. And that is how I counter the degen from the staff. However, it is not very good against single target. So fights like, well, Azire, Elder's Guardian, Elder himself are gonna be pretty difficult for this. So keep this in mind if you're making this kind of build. Either you're gonna have to play it differently, build it differently, or just do this for map clearing speed and just forget about farming Elder. And I did maps up to tier 14, however, well, tougher bosses can be difficult. And single target in higher tier maps is really not that impressive as I thought. Actually, the damage is very dynamic. If you don't crit, your damage is kind of bad, and I currently have 40% crit chance on the Cyclone without any charges, without any flasks. Your 4 power and frenzy charges gives you basically half of your damage. So without charges, you also deal kind of bad damage. And the biggest problem is that your main charge generation is on kill. I did try a couple different versions for generating charges, but nothing is just good enough. It just feels clunky and unreliable. And I mean just for single target. For map clearing, it is wonderful. Actually, for map clearing, I don't even look at my life pool, unless I have to stop and fight stronger boss like some legendary beast. Now, let's talk about items and then links. Basically, to increase my siphoning charges, I am using Mark of the Elder combined with Mark of the Shaper. Up until level 80 I was using 2 Le Hoop of all rings. Now, Mark of the Elder and Mark of the Shaper rings basically give you a lot of spell damage, attack damage, percentage life, and a bit of flat damage to attacks and flat damage to spells. And on top, they have pretty cool, unique skill. Mark of the Elder has 20% chance to trigger level 20 tentacle whip on kill, which is kind of hardly visible because of all the action, but it's basically a 3 tentacles slamming the ground, hard to notice it. And then Mark of the Shaper has 10% chance to trigger level 20 summon volatile anomaly on kill, which is basically like Shaper's vortex balls that chase enemies, explode, and then deal damage over time. For the gloves, I am using Shaper gloves with blind, which also give global blind chance. Now, blind is very important for this build because I am using the Effigon amulet. Basically, you have 100% chance to hit against blinded enemies. And that means it is easier to proc cast on crit and bladefall. As for the body armor, I tried to craft something cool, but instead I just got something boring but still very good. Instead I wanted a body armor with a lot of life, some resistances, and then attacks have over, let's say, 1% critical strike chance, which is global by the way. And I have 2 body armors similar to that, however they do not perform well enough and I wanted more crit chance, but I couldn't get it, so I just end up with what I have now. But if you can afford such body armor with like 1.2% crit strike chance, then you will definitely feel the increase in damage. For the belt I basically have a spider belt with lots of life and resistances, but at first I was using Fenumus Weave gloves for aspect of the spider, and I was using cooldown recovery speed belt. And cooldown recovery speed is very important for cast on crit, because cast on crit has a 0.5 second cooldown, meaning you cannot proc more than 2 cast on crits per second. It is also possible to get cooldown recovery speed on boots, but getting all that along with a lot of life and resistances can be extremely expensive. I was actually thinking about many different options, how to mitigate degen from the staff, how to become tankier, and how to still deal a lot of damage. I was thinking about aspect of the crab instead to mitigate degen. I was thinking about not using the Effigon amulet and using something else just to get accuracy, also accuracy on gloves, combined with crit strike multiplier on amulet, also life on amulet, resistances, but all that was just simply more expensive than this, and just tiny bit more effective, at least on paper. But I'm pretty sure if you are willing to throw in like almost 10 exalts, you could make this build very strong, even for single target. And lastly, for items, for boots and helmet, I just got lots of life and resistances. And I'm also trying to get strength whenever I can, because that basically allows me to drop some strength from the passive skill tree and take something else. For the jewels, as I already said, I'm trying to get life regeneration per second while moving, combined with life, crit chance, crit multiplier, resistances, and also would be nice to get chance to blind enemies on hit with attacks jewel. Now, I was thinking about using pure talent unique jewel for extra 0.5% crit strike chance, but I think it is just not worth it. However, there is a very expensive option how to get crit strike chance. Watcher's Eye, with percentage based crit strike chance while affected by hatred. But those things go over 10 exalts. And in this league I still haven't found a single Watcher's Eye from the Elder. And I did a bunch of yellow tier Elders. As for the flasks, diamond flask, basalt flask, and just whatever else you like. Now let's talk about skills and links. In the main setup I am using Cyclone, cast on crit with quality because it increases crit chance as well. Bladefall, added fire because added fire also affects Bladefall and Cyclone. And then lastly increased critical strike support, which also affect both Cyclone and Bladefall. I was experimenting with Blade Vortex, but there are a couple problems with Blade Vortex. First of all, it has bigger AoE than your Cyclone, so instead of doing cast on crit, you most likely just gonna kill enemies with the Blade Vortex and will not be able to ramp up the more Blade Vortexes. And well, simply you don't crit enough, you don't proc crits enough, so you can't actually stack Blade Vortex to... In most of the cases I didn't have more than 5 Blade Vortexes, and in the end it's not as good as Bladefall. Then in my gloves, first I tried Orb of Storms, Power Charge on crit, increased critical strike support and Culling Strike, but later I swapped Orb of Storms for Frenzy. And I must say both options will have drawbacks and are not reliable. Then I have Herald of Ash, Hatred, linked with Enlighten level 3. Now, Enlighten does not affect aspect of the spider, so I just barely have enough mana to cast one Stone Golem. But that's alright because my Cyclone costs no mana. Then I have lowest level casting damage taken with Phase Run, Immortal Call and Enfeeble. This is to proc one of the Pantheon powers and well curse enemies with Enfeeble to make me a bit well safer. And lastly I'm also using Charge Dash to go over the cliffs and Ancestral Protector to give me attack speed buff. Oh, I probably forgot to mention what my 6th link would be for the Cyclone cast and crit setup. There are a couple options. Culling Strike with quality would give attack speed and would affect both Cyclone and Bladefall damage. Maim support would also affect mostly Cyclone, but would also give some damage to Bladefall as well, and it would also slow enemies. And lastly, quality of life improvement, especially for single target, would be Power Charge on crit. But I think I'm just cursed. This league it's just impossible for me to 6-link anything. I'm probably gonna 6-link only at the very end of the league when I don't care about it. It's just my luck. As for the passive skill tree, I already talked about the Ascendancy notes, so I'm just gonna include path of building import code as always in video description. And that's about all. As for the next build, I will finally do something with buffs. And it's gonna be a meme overload build. Just a hint, no synclination buff. So that's all. Thank you for watching and see you soon.